champion and new boy Nino Vaccarella were leading a strong Ferrari and Porsche effort in our Maserati. Nino Vaccarella trying to keep up with the lap times of the great Maglioli, ran it off the road, split the gas tank, and the car was out. We then went to the Nürburgring, 1,000 Ks the Nürburgring, with two Maseratis, plus myself and Lee Lilly in the Corvette. Sterling Moss and Dan Gurney scored a great win at the 1,000 Ks for our Maserati Works team. Mastin Gregory and Gino Munaron were in 5th place. The Corvette went out over the very big jumps of the Nürburgring course with a wheel bearing, seized wheel bearing, which was devastating to us. There's a little 750 Oscar zooming through the S's. Nice area to watch smooth driving technique. Here comes Dan Gurney in a Works Porsche, ducking to the inside. That's an Alpha Coupe and a 750 Oscar. A little Morgan went around in front of them. This is a Causey Steer round tail Maserati. That would be Walt Hanskin in Cunningham's car. In 1960, CAMORADI went on to the 24 Hours of Le Mans with 3 Works Maseratis. Chuck Day and Mastin Gregory in the lead Streamliner set the fastest ever 3-liter speed at 169 miles an hour, which stood for many years. As the formulas changed, the 3-liter record stood for quite some time. We ran 1 Corvette and 3 Maseratis, and we were very pleased that our Corvette came home in 10th overall. And in 8th overall was a Cunningham Corvette, part of their 3-car entry driven by John Fitch and Bob Grossman.
I'm sorry.
They finished 8th overall. There goes Ginther Moret's Ferrari. And I think before it we would have seen Phil Hill. There's a Rodriguez brothers. Looks like Pedro in the car and not Ricardo. The Denise McCluggage, Alan Eager Ferrari GT did a superb job, went on to win the GT race, GT class of the 1961 Sebring. This is a long sweeping turn on the entry to the hairpin, which was spectacular at night at Sebring. In the old days when they had wire wheels, you would see the disc brakes light up as they would head into the corner. The brakes would go red, then yellow, then white. It was really spectacular. I'm sorry we didn't have the filming capability to show you that. It was quite an interesting event at night to be down here in the hairpin at Sebring, and this part of the course exists on the existing Sebring course. The old course is 5.2 miles, and the one they're using today is much shortened. It's down around 3.2 miles. It's one of the Corvettes getting sicker and falling out. The Le Mans 24-hour race in 1960 was the end of the World Championship season, and CAMORADI came back in '61 for a 2-car effort here at Sebring. They abandoned the rear engine car and took the front engine car to the 1,000 Ks the Nürburgring against strong factory Ferrari and Porsche opposition, and amazed the world by Lucky Kasner and Mastin Gregory winning the race outright. So CAMORADI won the 1,000 Ks both 60 and 61. The failures here at Sebring were a Maserati preparation, which was very frustrating. In 1960, one car threw a rod due to over-tightening of rod bolts by assembly workers at the Maserati factory, threw the rod through the side of the block. The second car seized a piston and jerked the cylinder liner down into the crankcase and destroyed the engine. And so we run out of daylight, and that's the end of our 61 race. It was a fascinating experience, very enjoyable for me, as you can well imagine. And I hope all of you found this story of interest and a little bit of enjoyment. Thank you very much for sharing it with me.
I'm Dick Thompson. I had the good fortune to drive at Le Mans. It was quite a thrill for me. Part of this was due to the fact that it was the first time a Corvette had been entered. That's what I drove, and that's what I'm still driving. Right after Sebring in April, I was talking with Briggs Cunningham, and he suggested we take a Corvette over to Le Mans for practice day to see what it would do. Well, within that same week, we shipped a car over by air, checked it out on the track, and came back home. We found out what we wanted to know. It was feasible to enter the car. We figured it would have a good chance to make a good showing. As it turned out, we were right. The 3 Cunningham team Corvettes came over as part of Cunningham's personal baggage, 20 tons of it. The cars were then driven from Le Havre to Le Mans. Cunningham also entered a new experimental E-type Jaguar. The CAMORADI USA team entered a 4th Corvette, as well as 3 birdcage Maseratis. Fortunately, all the Corvettes arrived with very little damage. If you'd seen those stevedores at work, you wouldn't have taken any bets. Our foreign cars received a lot of attention from the French people. I guess they hadn't seen any Corvettes to speak of. And let me tell you, driving through some of those narrow streets was just about as hairy as a track at Le Mans. Good practice, though. At Papa Dion's garage in Le Mans, our mechanics worked over the cars, adjusted them, made last-minute changes. Brakes were adjusted and readjusted. With a heavy car like this, they're mighty important. Even the heads got spruced up between practice runs. As you know, good mechanics can just about make you or break you, especially in a 24-hour race. Actually, Le Mans is tougher on the cars than it is on drivers. Most Europeans didn't consider the Corvettes to be serious contenders. After all, this was the car's first entry, and they felt the heavy weight was a decided disadvantage. But one thing they didn't count on was the power. A couple of days before the race, the teams take practice runs on the track. On race day, there'll be over 200,000 people in those stands. Some Porsches are awaiting their turn. That's a fast back-end MG, built especially for the race. Did real fine, too. That's Zora Duntov of Chevrolet, Lee Lilly of the CAMORADI team, and John Fitch. Fitch has probably driven more European races than any other American driver. The cars pull right out on the course here as compared to the United States practice of going up to the end of the pit lane before you come out. Each pit has its own man with a flag to bring them out on the track. The walls around the course are made up of wicker, backed up with about 10 feet of earth for crowd protection. Makes it kind of rugged if you foul up. My co-driver, Fred Windridge, lost a wheel in practice doing 150 down the straightaway. The car skidded a little, but he got it stopped okay. His story afterwards was that he saw a wheel in his mirror and said, uh-oh, some poor sucker lost a wheel. 2 seconds later, he found it was his. Our Corvettes are pretty well squared away by now. When I went over in April, we had a 3.7 rear axle ratio and got 6,200 RPM down the straight. Now, just before race time, we headed down to a 3.3 rear and still got 6,200. That picked up about 15 miles an hour on the straightaway for us. Pre-race inspection of the cars lasts almost a complete day at Le Mans. The officials make certain each car meets all rules and regulations. They look over the majority of the car's parts to see that no special equipment is being used. And they can be pretty hard to persuade, let me tell you. If they can't find an engine number on a part, they insist it should have a number, even if that part never had one in the first place. It's a trying time for the interpreters. It's hard to make the officials understand. The cars are weighed because Le Mans has a prize for the efficiency of a car. In other words, displacement versus weight. Naturally, the Corvette was the heaviest car entered, about 3,000 pounds. We had the biggest engine, too, 4.6 liters. We had a practice lap around the 8.3-mile course, 4:28, without pushing too hard. Our Corvettes were true production cars, with additions like roll bars, adjustable steering columns, non-reflecting instrument lights, etc. It was the only true production car in a race. The others were built specifically for Le Mans, or thinly disguised racing cars. You couldn't buy one from a dealer if you tried. This is Briggs Cunningham's new E-type Jaguar. Its first showing at Le Mans. It's somewhat similar to the D-type, but has quite a bit of change in the suspension. It has a 3-liter, 6-cylinder engine and a 4-speed gearbox, 300 horsepower at 6,400 RPM. I believe it turned in a 4-minute, 8-second lap in practice. This box checks the ground clearance. 4 inches is a minimum for the whole bottom of the car. This can be tough to achieve. This Jag had American colors since it was Cunningham's. The Ferraris, like that red one, went with 12 cylinders, 5-speed gearbox, an engine capable of hitting 7,400 RPM, and had a fast 4-minute, 1-second practice lap. Over in the background is one of the French DBs. These small cars were out to win the award given the car most efficient for its engine size. These events take place 4 or 5 days before the race. As you can see, there are thousands of people already there. It's a holiday week, something like Indianapolis. Major accessory companies had stands and exhibits at Le Mans. There's a huge AC spark plug in the background. One of the oil companies had a fancy pavilion put up for the drivers, a place to shower, nap, and eat during the race. The parking areas, Garage Bleu, Garage Vert, are sold weeks and months in advance. You buy a ticket, maybe in Paris or Marseille, and it gives you a reserved parking place. The cheapest admission ticket is about $6. This is the famous Dunlop Bridge over the track. It's a famous landmark here as well as other courses in Europe. There was an antique car parade, too. Quite a difference from the high-speed action to come. The morning of the race was really something. Well over 200,000 people milling around the course. These are the 3 Cunningham Corvettes coming on the track and lining up in the pit area. CAMORADI's Corvette was number 4. The different colored headlight covers were Briggs's idea to tell the cars apart. You couldn't read the numbers, but you could spot the colors at quite a distance. It worked out real well. The Corvettes were a main attraction during the whole race week. Sports car enthusiasts from all over the world gave them a real going over, especially the engine. As I mentioned before, not many people gave them much of a chance in the race. Everyone felt they were just too heavy to compete against the smaller cars. The Corvairs received much attention from the crowd, too. They were used as official cars. Before the race, officials sealed the gasoline caps as well as the oil and water caps with boxcar seals. They made sure you used their gasoline and not something more potent. Then at pit stops, they broke the seals and put them back on when service was finished. One of the regulations at Le Mans prohibits adding water or oil more often than every 25 laps. If you've got an overheating car, that's a tough rule to live with. We got our last-minute instructions from the chief steward. Of course, we'd already had sessions covering rules and regulations, ground rules, etc., and all of us had studied the course, noted such things as braking points and shifting points. It takes a lot of preparation. Le Mans is a demanding circuit. Before we get into the race itself, let's take a look at the course and see what it is. This is a true road course connecting various towns. It was selected, not built. It's probably the most varied course in the world, with a combination of straightaways, high and low speed turns, a little bit of everything. It's quite an equalizer for the different types of cars. Some are faster, some stop better, some handle better. Le Mans tests every part of every car. There's a smooth surface, white lines bounding the course for night driving, and a nice 4-foot wall for those who make